Welcome, everyone. This is Denny and Karl with GetWisdom, and today we're going to continue with the channeling series. And this is a special part of the channeling series. We call it Viewer Questions for Creator. And periodically we'll do one of these. We'll collect up some questions from our viewers, from people who come to the GetWisdom website, and there's a place there where they can leave their questions. We still get quite a few that are already answered. So if you do have a question for Creator, you can go in there and actually search the database and put a search term in there, and you'll find quite a bit of material there. And we have answered many questions, not only in the database but as part of the series. We've done, I think, probably close to 15 of these already, viewer questions for Creator, as part of the channeling series that Karl and I do every week. So today we have 10 questions. It potentially could be a long session, but I think they're interesting questions. And Karl, if you want, maybe we could talk a little bit about this particular part of the channeling series that we do, and how it's a benefit not only to our viewers but probably to us as well at GetWisdom. And then we'll get started.
Yes, thanks, Denny. Thanks to all of you watching. This is a labor of love, and it's a privilege and an honor in so many ways to be able to do what I'm doing and having an actual conversation with the Almighty on behalf of others and ourselves as well, those of us on the team here directly at GetWisdom, wanting to advance the human knowledge base and the understanding of the divine realm and where it all is headed and how things work, and how we can engage with the divine to make things happen. And that's the whole purpose of GetWisdom. Those of you who followed us for a while hear this every time, that we're in this for humanity. It's our tagline: healing and saving humanity. So we ask all kinds of questions because one can never be sure where the puzzle pieces need to go. So each question might seem like it's coming out of left field to some, or unconnected to other things maybe we've probed before. But that's kind of the point, that there's a lot to fill in here, a lot of blank, empty knowledge that could be useful. And that's what growth is all about. You don't need what you don't appreciate what you don't have yet. Sometimes there's an awareness that you're in the dark about something that is relevant, and it's right there facing you, and you don't know what to do. You've got a problem to solve, for example. But a lot of the more esoteric things we look at, or the theoretical, hypothetical, personal examples of struggles people have, and those sorts of things, have a teachable moment in them that can help many others. And I'm often surprised at the answers that come forth and how they might fit in with this broader plan to really come to a better understanding of the universe. Because it's of vital importance right now for human progress and even human survival, as it turns out. And that's the other big shocker that I have learned getting into this. I was pretty complacent for many years, thinking we're just going to kind of eke along and we'll gradually chip away at things and get better and better. And we might have some setbacks, but then we'll get on track and we'll start on this upward path once more. And I hadn't counted on having everything come to an end. And that can happen courtesy of the darkness. So we probe a lot into the darkness and its doings, who's doing what to whom, and the reasons behind it. But it starts from an understanding of ourselves and the divine, because our partnership with the divine, you and the Almighty, is the answer to anything that might be amiss. And we have a lot that's amiss in the world right now, and it's getting more wild all the time and rather strange and crazy. And it's a manipulation that's underway, and it's not pretty. So we like to satisfy our viewers. It's very important to us. We only have limited time to do any one thing. So it all contributes. And I especially love these direct questions to Creator, because I know that there's more than one person out there who cares about the topic of that question.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason it's in the list is that we have an appreciation that there's more that could be said about that particular topic. So these are vetted in a sense that we haven't really exhaustively explored it or given it maybe enough prominence as a burning issue in what we're doing that's more visible to the average viewer or participant in GetWisdom. It hasn't been talked about much in a webinar. We haven't channeled someone in the light to talk about a specific thing, or it hasn't come up. So there's a lot of room for growth here. We're in many ways just getting started here.
Yeah.
And we've gotten distracted a bit by the enormity of having to deal with the interlopers. That's really our reason for starting this enterprise in the first place, knowing there's a lot of darkness that other people aren't really addressing. People weren't really taking care of this. And in probing that, we learned so much about it that now we're alarmed because it's much more serious than we thought.
Yeah.
And so on. So other things have started to take more of a secondary ranking in the grand scheme, just because of the urgency of that primary need to keep humanity going and help encourage people by maybe shocking them a little out of their complacency. So they take this seriously and engage in doing something, do some prayers, learn to do how to do some healing work. There's many ways you can contribute, but we need each and every person.
Yeah. And I would say that, the ET problem and the human survival problem has absolutely taken over. I mean, it seems to be, it's the preponderance of everything, I would say. As evidence, we can ask a question about something, and invariably in the answer, whether it's a creator or someone that you're channeling from the light, will turn the question around, or the answer to the question around, to that very issue repeatedly. So we'll ask 4 questions and we'll get 4 answers that go back to that issue, irrespective of the question.
Yeah.
So, and then the analogy I like to use is that, if you're talking to your friend on the phone and your friend's got a really good view of your house and they're talking on the phone with you and they're looking down at your house and they see smoke coming out of your roof and flames, they're not going to talk to you about, whatever you called them up for. They're going to talk to you about the fact that your house is on fire. And I think that's a pretty accurate analogy for what we're dealing with here. That I think they view a lot of our questions as being kind of perhaps even nonsensical given the circumstances. Like, why do you want to know about the rings around Saturn when your house is burning down? And that's the way I understand what's going on here. Because for me, drafting the questions, it gets a little frustrating at times to get these answers that keep going back to a subject that's not really part of the question. But it's totally understandable given the circumstances.
Well, and it's a hard one learning we've arrived at where we get such answers. Yeah. When I was first starting out and doing channeling, and I would want to learn more about how to heal people who are troubled. That was where I was at. And so I heard a lot about discord, negative energies, and I would get little hints that this person is being manipulated by the darkness. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, what, their dark nature, their past karmic history, the influence of the hanging around with the wrong kind of people. I mean, we think of humans as, troubled, and many are, really disturbed and unreliable, and some are criminals. Many are mentally unbalanced, and that type of thing. And wasn't appreciating there was a deeper layer to that. And as we gradually learned more about that, the light was able to talk more freely and more directly. So now when I ask about a situation with someone, they may just tell me, oh, this person is being manipulated by extraterrestrials because they're considered their property, they're an asset because they've been involved with some training work or whatever. And, in the past, that wouldn't be so. And it's true for others out there doing this sort of channeling outreach. If they're not privy to the truth of things, they'll get things that are just little baby steps, even if they're reaching a high level source. They didn't just dump all this on me on day one,
Right.
That we've got all these problems. I had to learn my way to the truth. So this is hard-won knowledge. There's a huge investment getting to this point.
Yeah, and that's why believing that it's actually true, what we've learned. I mean, I think that's the biggest hurdle. Is a lot of people who first encounter GetWisdom, it's so out, far out of their worldview that it seems preposterous. There's no way that they could actually even consider some of the claims that are being made here, because it's not in their consciousness as even plausible, much less possible.
Well, and here's the thing that I never appreciated, because I didn't know that they could do this and that it was happening. People are being actively programmed to disbelieve in extraterrestrials, that it's possible for them to be here and flying around in our skies. So if they hear about some UFO sighting, it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. They don't care.
Yeah.
They're complacent. If you press them on the issue, they'll say, well, that's just kind of silly. Somebody's seeing Venus and they get all excited, or they see a helicopter and,
Yeah.
And they go back to their TV, and that's that. They have no curiosity whatsoever.
Right.
And it's manipulated to be that way. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's not that people are just thick-headed and unpersuadable. They are minded. They are manipulated actively to disengage from certain topics like spirituality. And that's the reason for the secular movement. And so we have a steep uphill climb in doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate all of you who are watching and willing to listen to what we believe is higher truth. And that's one of the characteristics. It won't be like most other people are talking about, because they're not getting accurate information from true sources that they think they're talking with.
Yeah, and I think that's another part of it too, is that the truth has a really high strangeness coefficient that I think a lot of people they don't think like, well, if I ever learn the truth, it's going to be something a little bit more benign than what's being shoved down my throat every day when I get up in the morning. It's like there's an expectation, and I think it's kind of rational in a lot of ways, is that the truth will set me free, and it won't be a shocking litany of darkness, at everything I look at, but that's in fact what we're dealing with, unfortunately. Every human institution is corrupted. Everybody's being manipulated. Over 90% of the people on the planet have some kind of entity attachments that are living off them as a parasite, and on and on and on and on. It just seems totally overwhelming to be asked to digest all that. So, you and I can sit from a place of having years to go through this and get to this point, whereas maybe somebody just happening on to GetWisdom and getting all this in maybe a 2 or 3 hour sitting, it's quite an undertaking.
Yeah, and I commiserate actually with people who are new to this kind of information. It's daunting and it's disheartening. There's just no other way to describe it.
Yeah.
But there is an answer.
Right.
So it's better to know you've got a disease than to just turn a blind eye to the symptoms and let them fester. That often doesn't work out well.
No.
And if you go to work on a problem, you're more likely to solve it than if you let the problem grow and trust to luck and good fortune somehow saving you. So we're in earnest and we're doing our best to move the ball forward for humanity and get the divine support we're going to need, because it's a divine level problem. We can't solve it ourselves. We're being victimized by beings of all kinds and hit from all sides with all sorts of dark manipulations and mischief. And it's taking a toll.
Right.
We're really increasingly diminished and impaired and impoverished.
Right. And
you haven't noticed. So.
And the good news is that, along with all this bad news, that, like you said, there is an answer. And that's the other reason that we're here, is because thanks to your work, you've developed a healing protocol that we can actually teach people how to use. And if enough people actually do that, this whole thing gets turned around in probably a pretty dramatic way, and in probably a relatively short period of time when compared to the amount of time that it's taken us to get here. So that's the main thing that we would like to invite our viewers to do, is after you watch this video, is to go to GetWisdom.com and look at the Lightworker Healing Protocol and give it some serious thought, give it some serious consideration. Even if only part of what's shared here is true, it doesn't negate the fact that the Lightworker Healing Protocol is probably still the answer, or still very beneficial in all ways, irrespective of how much of the truth someone's willing to accept.
Well, and one of the sad things about that is the Lightworker Healing Protocol gains much of its power because it contains leveraging through the divine realm and with divine beings participating alongside human.
Yeah.
That wouldn't even be necessary if a majority of humans were asking for divine help right now, but they're not.
Yeah.
That's the really sad thing. It's like there is an election every day. Are you choosing the light or are you choosing the darkness? Because God is watching and wanting to know. Most people go through their day and never give God a thought, never think about how to make the world better, and involving the divine in that task by making a request, a heartfelt outreach. And I've been told for years that if everyone would pray for that to happen, raise up the darkness, that's all you need. Reach out to the Almighty, raise up the darkness so everyone can experience love. That's what is needed right now. But they're not doing it.
Right.
There aren't enough people.
Right.
So we have to get to a quorum, a critical mass of humanity asking for divine assistance. It's only a minority right now. Many of the religious people have belief in the divine, but they're not asking either.
Right.
They've been kind of made to be complacent, just going in to do the same old church services and synagogue services and the same boilerplate lessons from the scriptures.
Yeah, and prayers that don't really deal with the problem or the issue at hand. They're not because they're not aware. It's not that they wouldn't pray if they knew. It's just that they don't know, so the prayer doesn't have anything to do with what the problem is.
Yeah. Because it's not just whether we believe or not. We have to take action.
Yeah.
We have to make our wishes, our desires known because the Almighty is watching all this, knows exactly what's happening and why and who is responsible. But it's our world to run. And that is a big surprise to most people that we're really in charge. We've been given that right to have free agency and free will. And if we neglect ourselves and others, it is we who will suffer. And that's the mode we've been in all along because we've been subjugated early on by the darkness.
Yeah.
And in a contest ever since. And we're making progress. And that's why things are such in such turmoil right now, because the light is gaining and they know it. And so they're turning the screws to try to cause as much pain as they can. And that's where a lot of the turmoil in society is coming from right now. It's not just we finally woke up and decided to complain about some old grievances. This is a dynamic kind of arm wrestling with the dark that's going on here.
Right.
And sometimes it really looks like they're winning.
Yeah, I agree. Right now it looks like they're winning. So with that, given we got 10 questions and probably a long recording ahead of us, why don't we go ahead and get started?
All right, I guess we've got everybody suitably depressed.
Everybody's ready now.
Well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
We're really going up against giants here, literally, in many respects. So it's a little bit like David and Goliath. And I guess the bottom line is who won that contest, in the biblical sense, in the story in the scripture. And that can happen again. Because the power exists. The power is out there. The divine can do anything. The question is, are we asking it to do something? If we don't ask, the divine will do nothing.
Right. It's the ultimate example of a free will scenario.
Yes.
Yeah, and
that's absolute.
And that's why we're here. Supposedly, we can handle that. That's the theory, anyway.
It's up to you watching. Use your power. Make your vote count. Make it known. And be an active partner with the divine. So I suppose we'll hear an object lesson or two about that along the way with these questions. So, all right, I will start my thing here.
Okay.
As a channeler to connect with the creator of all that is. And we're talking about the big kahuna, the Almighty, God, Allah, known by many names through the centuries. But there was one ultimate creator of the universe. That's who we're talking about. And we're actually extensions of that divine consciousness. And that's why everything humans do is of such importance, because we're working for the light here, and it's the reason we came down. So if we just live a mundane, ordinary life, we're wasting an opportunity to advance things for the greater good, and our greater good also. All right, so I ask for safety and protection around the work, and I do that in my mind as I get started. And we're told that more than 90% of channelers are talking to imposters, usually an extraterrestrial psychic, a human physical psychic who is intuitive, will sense when someone is reaching out, and they'll go and do a handshake. They'll answer. And they'll feed that channeler false information. It will sound good. It'll be about love and about light and upliftment and wanting to help and be encouraging, but it won't go much farther. It won't give real answers to real problems, and nor will the channeler be encouraged, but rather discouraged from probing into dark corners by making them complacent. So it's really a manipulation. It's not only false information, there is a direct mind manipulation done for them. So it's really terrible, and it doesn't give me any great joy to be relaying these grim facts. But that's really what's wrong with the so-called spiritual movement. It isn't really a spiritual movement, the New Age contingent of it. And religion is stalled by the side of the road. They're living out of a 2,000-year-old handbook, not doing anything new, getting involved with current problems in any new way or a deeper way than they've been trying to use all along that hasn't done the job.
Yeah.
And, I again, I don't mean to harm anyone, but there's too much complacency in thinking that the old ways can still work. And if you reach out to God and ask for help, it doesn't matter what religion you are. That's what matters. So if your religion isn't asking you to do that, do it on your own anyway, because you're hearing it here. It's a good idea. You don't have to be any particular flavor. All right. Okay. So I will get started, and then we will hear from Creator. This is Source Creator speaking.
Thank you for joining us. It has been stated that the ET Alliance can and does regularly review the akashic records of humans of interest to them. What do the ETs then attribute the fact that humans often incarnate as different skin colors, parentheses, for the purpose of broader learning, unparentheses, and polar opposite roles in life, wealthy versus poor, etc.? How do they view the broad range of roles that are played, and also when human souls incarnate as ET races as well?
They consider this acts of randomness, not that it serves a purpose, not that there is a rhyme or reason to all that happens. They are atheists and are blind to the reality of the divine, both in originating life itself and the many cultures of organisms, many of high intelligence, and the reality that all are extensions of divine consciousness and have immortal souls vested in their future by Creator, and allowing them the perch from which they are observing and drawing the wrong conclusions. The irony of their existence is that their disconnection from their origins is disconnecting them from the possibility of a future. This is the path of the atheist in today's world on your planet. They take for granted that atheists who are nice, happy, generous, kind, and sharing human beings are doing so because somehow that is a human quality that can be counted on, and religion is unnecessary. Nothing could be further from the truth. Those extraterrestrial beings you speak of have gone down that path in quite ancient times now. The oldest among the extraterrestrial alliance of the races of extraterrestrial beings is nearly 5 billion years old. Much of that time, they have been on a totally secular path. They are long-lived. So this creates the opposite perspective held by humans. They take life for granted. Because when you live to be 1 million years old, life truly does seem endless. And so humans, by contrast, are quite short-lived. They do not appreciate the continuity, the soul-based nature, even of themselves. They are blind to that reality because they gave up on the idea of the divine long ago and simply do not wish to explore the higher realms. Their disbelief precludes them from such exploration. This will happen to humans as well by becoming atheists. Their denial of their divine origins and the reality of the divine will eventually disconnect them as well. Even if they retain enough intuitive ability to see the akashic records, it will make no sense to them because the key missing piece in the equation is there is in existence throughout the universe a set of divine principles and divine laws that shape and govern conduct and outcomes, both. The law of cause and effect, otherwise called the law of karma, in thinking about the consequential nature of human action, applies to the extraterrestrials as well. They are loveless beings, and this has caused them to devolve into a state of self-serving savagery. This is a beautiful illustration of what they have lost in going on that path, that they do not understand their past, their heritage, and have no conception of a future other than their current selfish dreams they want to see fulfilled in the near term. They exist by exploiting others and causing pain to others because it makes them feel important, and they relish their power and are eager to demonstrate it again and again. They despise humans, and they look with disgust at the human history recorded in the Akashic records, condemning humans for their perceived weaknesses. At the same time, those weaknesses, the immense suffering they have had to endure because of being so powerless, was all caused by them. It is like beating someone to a pulp and then disparaging them because they can't walk and thinking they are lesser because they are weak and helpless and blaming them for their plight. This is the height of depravity, but it illustrates in your question a good example of looking at the world and universe through a particular lens. If it is a faulty lens, there can only be faulty conclusions reached in looking at the same information. What you know means everything, because it will shape the beliefs you hold and their possibility of existence. You will not believe what you cannot see to be the truth. Your interlopers manipulating you are trapped within the beliefs of ignorance they have created for themselves through being narrow-minded and self-serving. This is a powerful object lesson for humanity at this juncture. You are in danger of so narrowing your focus that you will surrender your future in the bargain if you keep on this way. There is more to life than what is on the surface. Things like skin color, one's occupation, one's economic status, and one's social circle. Those are trappings that exist for myriad reasons and can be quite fragile and transient. What matters is the content of the soul that is on display. If you have but the surface of your being on display, you will be living a very surface and superficial existence. This is still a choice you can make. You may need to throw off some chains in order for that to still happen. But it is possible, particularly if you partner with the divine. That is always what is needed to find one's way, because there is divine truth, and then there is non-divine, distorted perceptions. You choose how you live. You are in control of your thoughts, unless you have been heavily manipulated. If you have been heavily manipulated, chances are you have allowed that, if not chosen it to happen. Life is demanding. You need to have as much awareness of reality as possible. That means you must be vigilant. You must think deeply about everything. And you must seek knowledge and information. Embrace your curiosity. Do not fall victim to complacency. It is your enemy. It is a quicksand of the mind and will suck you down into oblivion.
Okay, thank you. If the changes in humanity have been manipulated by the interlopers, and we have been given many different racial physical attributes over time to promote separation, is the goal of humanity to go back to one physical set of attributes? If Adam and Eve were created, the first set of current humans, what did they look like? And is our destiny to return to that genetic code, or do we have to work with the changes that have been made by the interlopers, or will we be returned back to our original, unaltered human genetic code with those same physical attributes?